This is the Coral Triangle. It covers just 1.5% of the world's oceans. Yet, it contains nearly 40% of all known fish species and 76% of all coral species on Earth. The sheer density of life here is overwhelming. It feels less like an ecosystem and more like a superorganism. But the central question has always been, why here? Why this specific corner of the Western Pacific, nestled between 6 nations? What forces converge to make these 6 million square kilometers the planet's undisputed epicenter of marine biodiversity? The answer is not simple. It's a story written over millennia. It is a story of colliding oceans, continental drift, and a massive, planet-altering river of warm water flowing through the heart of these islands. This is the system. To understand it, we must first understand its architecture. The triangle is not a single, uniform place. It is a sprawling labyrinth of over 20,000 islands. These islands act as barriers, as channels, and as stepping stones. They break apart the vast fetch of the open Pacific. They create thousands of unique, isolated habitats. But they also funnel one of the most powerful and important ocean currents on the planet. Scientists call it the Indonesian Throughflow. It is the only place on Earth where a warm, tropical current connects 2 major oceans, the Pacific and the Indian. This throughflow is the engine of the triangle. It is a colossal conveyor belt of warm, nutrient-rich water. Vast quantities of water from the North Equatorial Current are pushed westward by the trade winds. They pile up in the Western Pacific, creating a sea level that is measurably higher than in the neighboring Indian Ocean. And gravity demands that this water must go somewhere. It squeezes through the deep passages and straits of the archipelago. This isn't a gentle river, it's a torrent. We are talking about a volume of water 15 times greater than all the world's rivers combined. A 15 million cubic meter per second cascade. As it flows, it brings 2 critical ingredients. First, it brings heat. This current system acts as the planet's warm pool, maintaining the perfect tropical temperatures between 27 and 30 degrees Celsius that corals need to thrive. Second, it brings life. Or rather, the potential for life. The larvae of corals, fish, and crustaceans ride this current like a highway. This massive exchange of genetic material connects populations across thousands of miles. It prevents genetic isolation and constantly replenishes the reefs. But there is another force at work, a force from below. As the throughflow accelerates through narrow straits, it creates powerful, turbulent eddies and upwellings. These deep water currents dredge up cold, nutrient-dense water from the abyss. Is the paradox of the Coral Triangle. It exists where nutrient-poor surface waters meet nutrient-rich deep waters. In most tropical oceans, the warm surface layer is like a desert, completely cut off from the nutrients below. Here, the complex geology and the power of the throughflow violently mix those layers. It's a constant subsidy, a rich fertilizer feeding the very base of the food web. So we have the 3 foundational rules of this world. We have the perfect, stable heat. We have the massive, interconnected larval highway. And we have the constant injection of deep-sea nutrients. this is the stage. A perfect convergence of geology and oceanography. A crucible forged by planetary forces, waiting for the actors to arrive. And in this environment, life did not just arrive. It exploded. These physical forces created the perfect conditions for life. But to become a factory for new species, it needed one more thing: time. Millions of years of relative stability, punctuated by dramatic change. The species factory hypothesis argues that this isn't just a place where species gather. It's a place where new species are actively forged. This process of creation begins with the architect of the entire system, a tiny, colonial animal. The coral polyp. Each polyp is a simple creature, a soft-bodied anemone relative, but together, in their billions, they secrete a calcium carbonate skeleton. They are a living organism that builds a geological structure. They are the ultimate ecosystem engineers. They build the high-rise apartments, the hiding places, the nurseries, and the hunting grounds. They are the foundation of everything. And here, in the triangle, we find over 600 different species of reef-building coral. This sheer variety of coral structures, the branching acropora, the massive porites, the delicate sea fans, creates an exponential number of niches. And life has filled every single one. We move from the architect to the citizens. The grazers arrive first, the vast schools of parrotfish and surgeonfish. Their role is critical. They are the gardeners. They graze the reef, clearing algae that would otherwise smother the coral. Their scraping and crunching, which I can hear right now all around me, is the sound of the reef breathing, of it being renewed. Then come the specialists. The butterfly fish, with their delicate mouths, are designed to pluck polyps or tiny invertebrates from crevices. The clownfish, finding perfect sanctuary in the stinging tentacles of an anemone. A partnership born of precise chemical immunity. Every shape, every color, every behavior is a solution to a different evolutionary puzzle. And where there is prey, there are predators. Gray reef sharks, white tips, and black tips. They are not just hunters. They are the regulators, culling the weak and the sick. Their presence is a sign of a healthy, balanced system. We see giant trevally, mussels of silver, hunting in packs. Moray eels, waiting patiently in their lairs. The entire food web, in all its brutal and beautiful complexity, is on display. But this still doesn't fully answer why. Why so many? The answer lies back with the geography. During the ice ages, sea levels fell dramatically by as much as 120 meters. Populations of fish and coral were cut off from one another. For thousands of years, they evolved in isolation, drifting into new species. Then, as the ice melted and the seas rose, the Indonesian Throughflow would switch back on. This great current would reconnect these isolated basins. It would pick up these newly evolved species and scatter their larvae across the entire archipelago. It was a perfect evolutionary pulse. Isolation creates novelty. Connection spreads it. This cycle of isolation and reconnection happened again and again. This is the engine of the factory. The result is what scientists call a center of origin. The coral triangle is not just a museum, it is the studio. Species born here are exported on ocean currents, seeding reefs as far away as Fiji, French Polynesia, and even Hawaii. The vast majority of life on Pacific reefs can trace its genetic lineage right back to this one crowded, super productive cradle. The triangle is, in essence, the genetic heart of the Pacific Ocean. A heart that pumps new life across an entire hemisphere. But this entire, sprawling, impossibly complex metropolis, this engine of biodiversity, is powered by a secret. A partnership so small, it's invisible to the naked eye. And it is a partnership that is now catastrophically, desperately fragile. We have seen the architecture of the triangle. We have met its billions of inhabitants. But now, we must look deeper. Because the vibrant color, the explosive growth, the very energy that fuels this entire system comes from a microscopic tenant. These are single-celled algae, known scientifically as Symbiodinium, or more commonly, this is not a plant. It is not an animal. It is a partnership. One of the most ancient and successful alliances on Earth. The coral polyp provides the algae with a protected home and the raw materials for photosynthesis to its own waste, like carbon dioxide and nitrogen. In return, the algae, bathed in tropical sunlight, perform a miracle. They convert sunlight into energy. They produce sugars and oxygen, transferring up to 90% of this energy directly to their coral host, is the engine. This microscopic symbiote is what allows corals to build structures so massive they can be seen from space. It is the power source for the entire metropolis. And it is also the source of their spectacular color. The brilliant blues, greens, and reds of a reef are not the coral itself. The coral animal is translucent, its skeleton is white. Of the color is the algae. For millions of years, this partnership has thrived in the stable, warm waters of the triangle. But this perfectly tuned relationship has a fatal flaw. It is balanced on a knife edge of temperature. The zooxanthellae are incredibly sensitive to heat. If the water temperature rises just 1 or 2 degrees Celsius above the normal summer maximum and stays there for just a few weeks, this ancient partnership collapses. The algae begin to malfunction. Instead of producing food, they produce reactive oxygen species, toxins, that damage the polyp's tissues. The partnership becomes a liability, and the coral, in a desperate act of self-preservation, expels its partner. It ejects the millions of tiny algae from its tissues. This is coral bleaching. The coral is not dead. Not yet. It is starving, naked, and exposed. The brilliant white we see is the color of its skeleton, a graveyard, visible through its own transparent, starving flesh. I have floated over a bleached reef. The silence is the first thing that hits you. The normal, chaotic fauna of the reef is gone. The parrotfish have nothing to graze. The smaller fish have nowhere to hide.
The sharks and gravelly have nothing to hunt.
The entire city has fallen silent. It is one of the most haunting and devastating sights in the natural world. If the temperatures return to normal quickly, the coral can recover. It can slowly reacquire new algae from the water column. But if the heat stress continues, the coral will starve to death. It will be smothered by turf algae, its white skeleton turning a fuzzy septic green. The high-rise apartments crumble. The engine of the triangle seizes. This is the tipping point. And in recent decades, due to warming oceans, these mass bleaching events have gone from being rare, once-a-century disasters to a recurring, almost annual catastrophe. The Indonesian Throughflow, the warm pool that once nurtured this system, is becoming a death trap. The very force that built the triangle is now its greatest threat. We are witnessing the unraveling of an entire world. And the consequences are not confined to these 6 million square kilometers. This isn't a local problem. The collapse of this one, distant ecosystem
is a direct threat to the stability of our entire planet.
The silence of a bleached reef is not just the sound of a local tragedy. It is the sound of an engine failing. An engine that supports not only the biodiversity of the Pacific, but the very survival of hundreds of millions of people. The Coral Triangle is not a remote, pristine wilderness to be admired from afar. It is a vital, functioning piece of planetary infrastructure. We must synthesize what we have learned. This system is a biological pump and a physical barrier, and both are now under direct threat. Let's first consider its role as a pump. The species factory we explored is not just an academic curiosity. It is the source of global food security. The larvae of tuna, grouper, and snapper that ride the Indonesian Throughflow and other currents are the future stock for fisheries across the entire Pacific.
This is the nursery for an ocean.
More than 120 million people. That is the number of human beings living inside the triangle's borders. They depend directly on these reefs for their daily protein. When the coral dies, the herbivorous fish that graze the algae disappear. The small fish that hide in the branches disappear. And a large predatory fish, the tuna, the trevally, the grouper that feed coastal communities and support a multi-billion-dollar global industry, they disappear too. It's a complete cascading collapse of the food web. A bleached reef is not just a silent reef. It is a barren reef. But the consequences are not just biological, they are physical. A healthy coral reef is a living breakwater, a fortress of calcium carbonate built over millennia,
perfectly designed to absorb the destructive power of the ocean.
Data shows that healthy reefs can absorb up to 97% of a wave's energy before it hits the coast. They are the front line of defense against typhoons, tsunamis, and sea level rise. When a reef dies, it begins to erode. The intricate, wave-baffling structures crumble into rubble. The fortress falls. And the full, raw power of the ocean is unleashed upon the coastlines.
The villages, the towns, the cities,
the 20,000 islands of this archipelago lose their shield. This turns a climate crisis into an immediate humanitarian and economic crisis. The cost of losing this one ecosystem is measured in tens of billions of dollars annually. It's measured in lost food, lost income from tourism, and the astronomical cost of building seawalls to replace the services the reef once provided for free. We are losing the greatest biological treasure on the planet. And we'll be forced to pay to replace its services, and we will fail. We began this journal by asking why this one place is the epicenter of life. We found an answer in a perfect convergence of geology and oceanography. A warm water engine, the Indonesian Throughflow, a species factory, pulsed by ice ages. A microscopic partnership, the engine within the engine.
We have seen how this system builds, creates, and exports life across an ocean. Now, we must face the great synthesis of our time.
This microscopic algae, the Symbiosis, is perhaps the most sensitive indicator of our planet's health.
The bleaching of the coral triangle is not a warning.
It is a verdict. It is the physical manifestation of a planet pushed past its thermal limit. The survival of this underwater Amazon is no longer a question of conservation. It is a question of chemistry and physics. The fate of the triangle is now our own, its future, and the future of the 120 million people who call it home. Now depends entirely on the speed at which we can stabilize the heat of the entire planet.
The engine is failing, and the time to act is over.
The time to have acted was decades ago. Now, we are in an age of consequences. We came here to understand the origins of life's abundance. We leave with a profound understanding of its fragility. The coral triangle is not just a place on a map. It is a living, breathing artery of the planet. Its health is a direct reflection of our own. To look at this reef system is to see a mirror of our global impact and a blueprint for what we stand to lose. Its survival is the ultimate test of our stewardship, a legacy that will be written in white bone or in vibrant, living color.